Well, we got a little over 2 weeks till the NFL draft. Now, we have draft analysts doing mock drafts over and over and over and over and
Rinse
over
and
again.
repeat. Rinse and repeat.
Not our Pete Prisco, though. Only doing 4 total, and this is mock draft 2.
Slacker. Slacker.
Oh. No, I'm not saying that he's a slacker.
Okay.
I'm just saying he puts that extra time and energy.
Oh, so it's a dig at Ryan Wilson.
No, I'm not. You guys are so mean. I'm saying you put that extra time and energy into making sure that this is exactly what you want to put out there.
There is a season that goes on that actually matters, too.
Right. I know that.
Pete's about quality, not quantity, okay?
Thank you, Brady.
Teach their own.
Thank you.
I'm with you, Pete.
Thank you, Brady.
And we love our Ryan Wilson as well in all of his mock drafts. Pete Prisco, Brady Quinn, getting me in trouble already for no reason.
Would never.
You know, I'm just trying to give Pete some love here for putting so much time into this mock draft 2.0. And obviously, everyone wants to know the quarterback situation. I mean, that's always the question on everyone's mind. What's going to happen at the top of the draft? Who's going to be the first off the board? We have an idea who that's going to be. But after that, there's a lot of questions. J.J. McCarthy, a name that keeps coming up. Where is he going to go? And Pete, you like him to the Patriots. So Brady, I want to get your take on Pete's mock with that.
Yeah, I could see this happening. I was actually going to ask Pete, where do you feel like his ceiling is? Is his ceiling potentially at number 2 with the Washington Commanders? Or do you feel like this is as high as he could possibly go?
No, I think this is as high as he can possibly go. I think number 2 is between Jaden Daniels and Drake Maye.
Okay.
And I think Jaden Daniels will win out there. But in this scenario, I'm hearing a lot of stuff from people in the league that the Patriots love him. They love J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, you know how I feel about J.J. McCarthy. I wouldn't take him here, but this is a mock draft where you try and spot guys into where you think they're going to go, which is why I had the Patriots take him at 3.
And in your first iteration, you had Drake Maye going the spot to the New England Patriots. So I'm with you. I think a quarterback goes here, whether or not it's J.J. McCarthy or Drake Maye, we'll have to wait and see. The thing that I love about J.J. McCarthy is I was kind of starting to chart some of his throws as you kind of comb back through some of the film. About a third of his passing attempts were on third down. That's more than any other of these top quarterbacks that we're talking about. And third down, especially when you're running an offense that likes to run the football first, and that's what we always hear about J.J. McCarthy is he wasn't highlighted within this offense. They didn't feature him, what he's capable of. Okay, you know what one of the hardest things to do actually is? To sit around for about 10 minutes, hand the football off, and oh, by the way, we need you to convert on this third down. And then hand the football off. Third down again, you got to step up, you got to make something happen, you got to complete another football. It's hard to get into a rhythm and be able to do it in an effective, efficient manner consistently well. J.J. McCarthy did that. Every time his team called upon them, he delivered, he did that. That's one of the reasons why they're a national champion. So I know there's not as big of a sample size for throws as there is compared to some of the other guys on this list. He has that sort of ability, I think, to run and orchestrate an NFL offense like he did at Michigan at the next level. Will there be growing pains? Of course. But I still think he very well could go in this spot, and he's going to be a franchise quarterback.
I mean, but when he did throw on third down, he'd sit in clean pockets, and he had some pretty good receivers and good tight ends. I mean,
that's not true. That is not true. He's one of the more mobile quarterbacks in this class, but you didn't see it all the time, but he did demonstrate it from time to time.
And he had trouble throwing to the left a lot of the time, and he had a really bad game. By the way, if you put Bowling Green on the powerhouse, he was terrible in that game.
That was very early in the season.
Well, I mean, but there are things to hold against him.
At times through things too.
And he had 18 guys on his team that are going to the NFL and went to the combine. It was a great team. He's a great quarterback in that environment. If everything goes right, I think J.J. McCarthy can be a fantastic quarterback on the next level if everything goes right. Is he the guy who's going to rise above it all and take his team with him?
There's only one player in this draft that can do that. That's Caleb Williams. There's only one quarterback in this draft.
Daniels might be able to do that.
And I don't think he's to that level yet. I think he had a phenomenal year at LSU. We'll see what it looks like because he's going to get drafted to a team
J.J. McCarthy, your number 2 quarterback?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
All right. Continuing.
You're his agent? I mean, you sound like it.
No, but I've said all along I think he's going to get taken in the top 10.
Oh, I do too. I'm not saying. But I wouldn't. It's me. That's me.
And I'm saying I would.
Okay. I would not.
So as JJ's been rising, the quarterback who seems to be falling, albeit slightly, is Drake Maye. And there's a mock trade that Pete Prisco's put together between the Vikings and the Chargers. LA has the 5th pick. We'll dive into the Chargers selections later on. But Pete, then the Vikings go up to 5. to get their quarterback in Drake Maye.
Yeah, and I think this is who they have their eye on. That's who they want. They want to go up and get him. In this scenario, I have Arizona staying put and taking Marvin Harrison. The word around the league is they're getting a little greedy with what they're asking for that pick, which is understandable. So you take Marvin Harrison, and if you're sitting there and you're the Chargers, you move down to get extra picks, and you allow somebody to go up that's not in your conference, by the way, somebody to go up and get to get Drake Maye, and it makes all the sense in the world because you talk about that Vikings offense. Kevin O'Connell likes him, and you know McCown likes him because he coached him in high school, so it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I think this is the most realistic scenario you've had so far in your 2 drafts, whereas the Arizona Cardinals end up staying put. They take Marvin Harrison Jr. To me, he is the best wide receiver prospect. I think Malik Neighbors could be close, but when you look for that number 1, the bigger body size, bigger catch radius, everything else just from his dad, the lineage, and I think how prepared he will be for the next level to be the number 1 guy, he'd be hard-pressed to be passed up on. So it becomes the Chargers at 5 who'd be willing to trade back. Minnesota concerned about the Giants at 6 maybe taking a quarterback. They trade up. So all of that lines up, makes sense. And I can tell you this much, from earlier this season, talking to some folks within the Minnesota Vikings organization, they would definitely make this move to go get Drake Maye. Now, granted, that was really going off of his film 2 years ago, which was much better than what we saw this past year. But in this scenario, if it plays out that way, I don't think you're wrong here. I think the Vikings trade up to 5 and they take him.
And if it flips where Drake Maye goes 3 and this scenario plays out, I think the Vikings would go up and get J.J. McCarthy as well. I think they got that extra draft pick to go try and get the quarterback.
We want to look at the Bears next, and it seems like everyone's in agreement that the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams, number 1 overall. But with that 9th pick, Pete, you're saying that they want to add another weapon to the team. Rome Odunze is the guy that you have going there, but Brady, you would go edge here?
Well, potentially edge rusher, yes. Put him opposite of Montez Sweat. And I think when you're looking at it, I don't think you can necessarily go wrong, but you do have DJ Moore on this roster. And so to me, I think you can still find that quality wide receiver that can make an impact next to DJ Moore. I don't know that you can find another edge rusher like a Jared Verse, like a Liatu Latu at this point that's still available in this mock draft scenario you're putting out there. So I would probably go edge here because I think there's a bit more of a drop off there once those guys go in the first round and who you could potentially get in the second round.
I would go edge as well. I just think that there's a lot of talk out there about them going for another wide receiver. You mentioned, they have more. They have Allen now too, and Allen's up in the years. So as you get a young quarterback, you want to have a guy who's going to be around there for a long time, which is why I think they could possibly go for Odunze.
The other thing too is he's a different body type. He's a bigger body target, down the field. And not saying that DJ Moore isn't capable of doing that. He's always reminded me of a younger Steve Smith Sr. But you want that bigger body contested catch guy in the red zone who can go up, high point the football, and make some of those plays for you. So he fits that bill as far as what those guys look like too.
Yeah, and if Latu was there and he's healthy, that's the concern with him. There's medicals on him. So if he's healthy, then I think he would make some sense for them in this spot. I personally agree with you. I would get an edge rusher in this spot.
That's always interesting hearing you talk about medicals because you always say just shoot him up and let him go play. So it's crazy to me that you even care about medicals.
Well, I care about medicals. Okay. There's some situations where you can't just shoot him up and go play.
Okay.
Again, your next mock will be your better than, which you will have, but you think polls in this spot would take receiver over edge. Again, but both of you guys think edge would be a good part and pick there for Chicago. All right, let's ask you about Talise Fuaga or Tully Fuaga out of Oregon State here. Going to the Jets, we know they need O-line help here, but outside and after Joe Alt, is it more of a reach here, Pete, or you just think it's a natural fit for the Jets here?
No, I think it's a natural fit when you look at what they did with their tackles. Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses are at the end of their careers. I think this is one of those situations. This guy's a left tackle. I think he can play on the right side if need be, and you have to get better for the future. Now, everybody will say, well, they're all in. Well, Tyron Smith doesn't play every game anymore. It's not, he hasn't been that guy. He hasn't been consistently in the lineup, so there's concern about the left tackle spot. You can't allow it to happen again the way it happened last year. So I think this is more about the future, but if Smith gets hurt, then you let him play there.
I believe we talked about this in your first mock draft 1.0. It's one of two spots. It's either the tackle position or it's the wide receiver position. I believe in your first one you did a wide receiver, especially in looking at the fact that the guys they've brought in as free agents essentially are one-year deals, and that's no really long-term commitment. So those are the two positions they're battling between. Fuaga would make a lot of sense. I think when you put on the tape, you feel pretty confident too about him being able to go in and play right away at the NFL level. The transition from left to right, that's going to be tough, and I think that's the tough part about taking a tackle here is, do you feel like you could take a J.C. Latham, for example, who's played right tackle, be able to immediately go in and play that spot, or are you more thinking about the future, a year after Tyron Smith maybe plays, then you move Fuaga over, or if you're concerned about his injury risk there too. But you know, I think the interesting thought here is it's really an investment in Aaron Rodgers. Whatever they do with this pick, it's about Aaron Rodgers protecting him or who he's throwing to.
He's making the pick.
Oh, yeah?
He's the GM of the
He's going to go and announce it?
He's the GM of the team. What do you want, Aaron? I mean, Brock Bowers could be a play here as well, because there's some talk that they like him as a potential tight end in the middle of the field as well.
I want to go back to the O-line real quick, and a player like Fashanu out there, our Ryan Wilson has him as the #1 O-lineman coming off the board in this one. You, Pete, have him with the 14th pick going to the Saints.
Yeah, I just think the other guys are better in my mind. I think when you look at Alt, I think he's definitely. I think the Titans have their eye on Alt. That's kind of pencil him in there. I mean, he's going there unless the Chargers decide they can hold on to their pick and take a tackle and move him to the right side. And then I think you look at the rest of the group. I don't think Fashanu is ahead of those guys. I think they're all close. I just think that where he would fall would be perfect for him. I think he'd step in and start at left tackle. It's perfect for him. He's just a left tackle. That's what he is.
Yeah, and look, he's got incredible length, great feet, athleticism. You know, we'll see how he transitions to the NFL. I think this is the pick if he's there. The surprising thing to me is that you've kind of had him drop over the course of doing at least the first 2 iterations of this, and at least compared to some of a couple of the people out there. I mean, in this one, you've got J.C. Latham going in front of him, which I don't necessarily
more because
see
he's
happening.
a fit. He's a fit at right tackle. I mean, that's why I have Latham going there, because they have a left tackle. They have Colt Miller, so you
understand that.
Yeah, so you pick him to play at right tackle. That's why. And I think I'm a big J.C. Latham guy, by the way.
Yeah,
I think he's a violent, tough football player. I mean, he really is, and he's a massive man.
To that point, too, I think gone are the days where we used to talk about, is it too early to take a right tackle? Because you got to have both. Most people have two good edge rushers, and maybe again that's where on the spot you look at number 13 and start moving backwards. It makes a lot more sense.
Although some people think that this guy could be Jonathan Ogden, people we work with.
Well, it's a big name out there.
Rick Spielman.
Big name, Hall of Famer type guy. Let's circle back to that Minnesota and LA trade. So we talked about the Vikings, of course, with Drake Maye at 5. And then 2 selections for the Chargers in the first round. And surprise, surprise, wide receiver with both selections.
Well, I mean, no, one was a corner. They got Mitchell.
Oh, Mitchell, that's right.
Mitchell, the corner from Toledo, who they have to, you play in the division with Patrick Mahomes, you have to be good at the corner. And they've had problems there at times. I think he'd be a guy you step in and play. And then you get a wide receiver, big, long striding wide receiver in Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas, you know, you talk to people around the league, and one of the things they say is, first couple of years, he wasn't putting quite the effort in the work that he did last year, and he saw what Neighbors had become by putting in all the work, and he said, you know what, I'm going to do that as well, and he became a big-time player outside. That'd be a great pick for Justin Herbert.
It'd be a tremendous draft if this is what the Chargers were able to come away with this trade scenario. Quinyon Mitchell, who, to your point, he's immediately going to help not only their pass coverage, one of it's Patrick Mahomes, but help out that rush to give him an extra second to get to Patrick Mahomes. And then Brian Thomas, I mean, you got to have the ability, too, when your defense gives up those points, to create some big plays. He's got the speed. He's got that big play ability. Hopefully they get more out of Quentin Johnston as well, and then they kind of come along together. The only question I have for you is Harbaugh talks a lot about building these teams throughout the trenches. Did you contemplate O-line, D-line in this particular spot?
Yeah, but when I look at their offensive line and sit and listen and talking to him when we were at the league meetings, yes, he was raving about the offensive line, and he talks about being physical, but then he also raved about some of those young guys that he has on that roster. And you know, like Salyer, the kid from Georgia, he can play a bunch of different spots. So I think inside of him, he feels he can get by with what he has on that offensive line. They'll use a pick or two on the offensive line. It just might not be at the top.
Gotcha.
Looking at a player like Cooper DeJean coming off that lower leg injury, missed the end of the season with the Hawkeyes there. Pete, you like him, number 25, going to the Packers.
Yeah, and again, he's one of those guys that can play corner, but I also think he can play safety down the line.
Why does he have to play safety?
He doesn't have to, but he can.
Why does he have to develop into a safety? What do you mean?
We see
he runs a 4.40.
There's a lot of corners in this draft I think can play safety.
Big vertical jump, big broad jump.
Can play safety.
He's long enough to play cornerback?
I think he can play safety, and I think he can be a good one. I
don't doubt he can play safety, too. I just don't know why you have to put him in that spot.
I put him at corner first and see how he does. If he plays well at corner, then I keep him there.
Why are we worried about his ability to play corner?
Because I like versatility. Okay. I like versatility.
You don't think he can
I'll
match
give you
up?
another one.
You don't think he can match up with that
your corner at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I think he's a corner, but I think he can play safety.
Okay. Cam Hart.
Yeah.
6 foot.
TJ Tampa from Iowa State, corner, but I think he can play safety.
Okay. You seem to be the only person that I've heard talking about Cooper DeJean potentially moving to safety so fast into his career.
Not so fast.
Just kind of interesting.
It gives you a chance to have versatility back there.
All right. I feel like from what I've watched, I think he can match up. I think he's going to be okay.
It'd be a great pick for the Packers, by the way.
Pete Prisco, that mock 2.0 on CBSSports.com.
You never know what to expect from these two.
Oh, they're midseason form.
Well, he's a young, energetic guy now. Look at that young hairstyle.
Got a nice tan going, you know, looking good. Ryan Wilson, Rick Spielman, they've been having guests on frequently as we near the NFL draft in Detroit. Scan the QR code and check them out if you haven't.